Okay, in this video, I want to walk through how to use the tool at NoiseFixer.com. This is a noise reduction tool that allows you to see the noise in your audio in a 3D space. So we're going to go ahead and upload. You can just click right here or drag a file onto the page. It'll load into this 3D scene here. And this red area is what's called the noise floor. That's adjusted by these settings right here, these sliders. And we can adjust what we want to take out of the audio. But before we do that, let me drop these down so that we're not seeing them interfacing with our audio. Now, if you're new to looking at a 3D spectrogram, it's much like a 2D spectrogram, except that we've added a height to the audio as well. And if you're new to a 2D spectrogram, then it's usually oriented kind of like this, where from left to right, that's the timeline, kind of like a usual waveform. But from bottom to top, those are the frequencies. So low frequencies on the bottom, like down here, and high frequencies on the top, like S's and T's, sounds like that. Those are up higher. Now, way up high are sounds that we can't even hear. They're outside the human hearing range. And way down low, same thing. But generally, a spectrogram is generated in a way where it's looking at audio that is within the human audio spectrum. If it's outside the spectrum, if it's really, really low, it's typically not going to be included in a spectrogram. And same thing if it's really, really high. So what is a spectrogram useful for? It's a way of looking at audio which gives you a lot more detail. So with a waveform, you're looking at audio in a pretty basic way, like just goes up and down. And it's really hard to get in there and look at the details. So with a spectrogram, you can get a lot more closer look at what's happening with your audio. So like I mentioned before, in a 3D spectrogram, height indicates amplitude or volume. Like the louder it is, the higher up it's going to be. The quieter it is, the lower it's going to be. So right away, knowing that, you can look at a spectrogram and know that all this area right here on the left-hand side is going to be quiet. This area here is going to be louder on the right-hand side. Now, if I spin this, same thing. Audio up there is going to be quiet. Audio down here is going to be low. And looking at it, that's going to be high frequencies are quieter, low frequencies are louder. Now, it's a little bit misleading because we're looking at this audio in a way that, there's two different ways of looking at a spectrogram. There's logarithmic and linear. And I won't go into detail about what those mean, but essentially that's like how this is broken up. One way, more audio is down here. Another, more audio is up here. And this is kind of the default way of looking at it, where most of the audio that's going to be in the audible range is going to be down here toward the bottom. That's just a typical way of looking at a spectrogram. And so as you go up the spectrogram, it kind of like stretches out essentially. So what you can do with this tool is you can raise up what's called a noise floor, and this is a set threshold for audio that you want to remove. So the higher we lift this up, the more audio will be removed. So if we move this all the way up, it's going to remove all the audio. See, everything is contained within that red area. And if we go ahead and click process audio, what we get out is going to be pretty much not much in there. So it's processing right now. We will see that new file just below this file here. So let's listen to the original. This is an old recording of a vinyl record, and it was a mono record, but it was recorded in stereo. That'll matter in just a minute. But here is the output of what we just processed. And already, just looking at it, you can see there's nothing there. It's completely silent. And if we play it back, sure enough, no sound plays. Now we can switch back and forth between the input and output and see the difference of what we just did. Now, it's not a problem. We can adjust and reprocess. So if we try to adjust this, we get this little highlight around these two buttons letting us know that we forgot that we're in output mode and we need to go to input if we want to see our changes. So let me drop these down and just take out some of that noise and see what that sounds like. So we'll leave most of this audio and we'll go ahead and process that. There are a couple other tools here that I'll show you where we can preview what the spectrogram will look like with our current settings without having to wait for it to process. It's a way to kind of get a preview. You won't be able to listen to it, but you'll at least be able to see kind of what you're doing. Let's go ahead and listen to this new version. Now I'm still hearing some of that noise. So we didn't take out quite enough. So let's go back to our input. Let's pull this up even more. And this up higher. And we'll even take this higher and reprocess. We can also adjust the midpoint where this green line is, and you'll see these, there's a pink line there, there's a green line there, there's also a blue one over on this side. Those correspond to these colors here so that you can just see which way this is oriented if you had this the other way or something. Let's go ahead and listen back. And much better. We don't hear that noise. Now, I'm not sure if it's picking up on the microphone, but there's a lot more noise in this version here. Now, what you have to be careful of when you're doing this kind of work is, are you taking out too much? Are you making it sound too processed? And you can test that out. You can, instead of outputting the cleaned up audio, you can output the noise itself, and you'll see, and again, it's reminding us that, we haven't changed anything, but it's just a helpful reminder that you're still looking at the output. When you output the noise, you're like able to see with more detail what exactly you're doing to the audio. So let's go ahead and process, and we'll see what we're pulling out. This we're pulling out too much. It'll sound too processed. And so we want to adjust a little bit. And that's why this work requires a tool like this, because you got to do a lot of back and forth and playing with it and just getting in there and looking at the audio and kind of going back and forth and seeing what you're doing. Now, when I play this, you can hear it's picking up some of that instrumentation, some of the sound of what was an organ. But one thing to listen for when you're doing this type of work is, can I hear any vocals? If you're working with audio that has vocals in it, your ear, because you're a human, I'm assuming, because you're a human, your ear is tuned to listen for the human voice and be able to distinguish the human voice from other audio. So as you listen back to this processed audio, if you are able to hear a human voice in the noise output, since we selected output noise only, that probably means that you're pulling out more audio than you should. If you can't distinguish a human voice in the noise output, then you're probably good. You're probably not pulling out more than you should. So let's listen for where, first of all, let's go to the original audio so we can tell where in the timeline that voice should appear. Right at about 11 seconds. And I'm hearing some noise, but I'm not hearing any vocals. So it's probably the case that I'm not pulling out too much. And in fact, maybe I want to even pull out more. But if you see here on the right-hand side of the spectrogram, or on the bottom side, if I orient it this way, I am pulling out more than just this base noise floor. And so that's what's interesting about a 3D spectrogram, is that even though I'm pulling out more audio than what we would normally anticipate as the noise floor, we're still not pulling out too much. And so that's why this type of tool is so much more powerful than looking at audio any other way. Even though we're pulling out more than we would think, we're still left with a piece of audio that sounds good. So let's go ahead and process that. And there's also this preview mode, which I'll show you in just a second, where you can preview the output before you process it. All right. And we'll wait for 11 seconds. So the most important thing is to listen to the audio. The tools like this are great and can save you a lot of time and really help with getting in there and making sure that you're doing what you think you're doing to the audio. But at the end of the day, you've got to listen back to it and make sure it sounds good. You've got to listen back on headphones, listen back on speakers. If you're really into audio production, then you've got to make sure and test out how it really sounds to your ear before you can call it done. But this is a great way to go back and forth, because you can listen to the processed audio, you can look at what you're pulling out, look at what's left, and iterate. And if you like this but you want to process it more, you can set as input, and it'll replace the file up here, the input file, and now becomes the new input. And so now you can reprocess it with new settings if you want to. Now I mentioned this preview mode. Let me go back and re-upload that original audio. And I guess it's confused. It thinks this is the original audio. So let me refresh here, because I didn't change the file name. There we go. Pulling in this original audio, and let me show you that preview mode. So as we move these threshold sliders around, we're going to see what the output should look like. So this can give us an idea of what it is that we're doing to the audio before we process it. You can also output the noise only. So now you're seeing what you're pulling out of the audio. So these are great tools to play around and like I said, you can move this midpoint here. You could drop down the high frequency and low frequency thresholds and just move this midpoint around, and you could go, just take one range and process it, and then set that as set the output as the input again, and continue processing. Another thing that this tool is able to do is what's called, well, there are different ways of referring to it, but essentially what this vinyl cleanup does is it removes stereo information from what should be a mono track. There are a couple reasons why you might want to do this. I think probably one of the more common is when you're taking a recording from like an old record, an old vinyl record that was originally in mono. And if you've got a recording of that from a stereo record player, you can then remove the stereo information and make it a mono file. Now, the reason you'd want to do that entire sequence is because when you take an old record and play it on a record player, you'll often hear scratches and pops as the record is playing. That's a common sound when it comes to recording old records. But one of the benefits of recording it in stereo is that a lot of those scratches and noise are being picked up by the stereo needle on the stereo record player in stereo. And so if it's a piece of like a hair or something, a piece of dust laying on the surface of the record, it's going to hit the left side before the right side, or the right side before the left side. It's going to be slightly different. And so you can use an algorithm to go look for all those places where the audio is different on the left or the right and duck those down. And that's what this tool does. It'll duck down anything that's louder on the left or louder on the right so that they're the same. The more common way of trying to deal with this problem is to just mix the two left and right together, and that'll make the overall audio louder, so then you can just play it quieter and the sound is quieter in comparison. But that doesn't actually get rid of the noise. This tool actually gets rid of the noise, and we can even see the effect of that. So I'm going to move these thresholds all the way up all the way down, so they're not confusing myself over here. All the way down so that they're not doing anything. And we're going to output noise only, but we're going to turn on the vinyl cleanup. And we're not able to see it here, so let's go turn this off and just export with this on and see what happens. What it should do is pull out a lot of that noise. So we're going to see here if it's able to do it. And you could also turn on high quality processing when you do this. It's going to work a little bit better. But let's see if this pulls out some of that noise. This was a mono record and it was recorded in stereo. So hopefully we should see, yeah, just like that. Just with that one setting, and unfortunately it didn't work with the output noise only. It takes quite a bit of processing, and sorry, I forgot. You can't preview that effect. But going back and forth between the output and input, we can see quite a bit of that noise was removed just from that one effect. So I would run this in high quality mode, and then once you've got it output, then set that as the input, and then do your other processing on it once that's already complete. And that'll give you a head start in removing a lot of that audio. Now again, only use that tool on old mono files, because if you try it on stereo, it'll do all kinds of weird things. You can test it out. Some people use a tool like this for trying to strip out the vocals from like a song, and sometimes you can get a clearer, in fact, I could show you real quick. Okay, I've got a new file loaded in here. This is Nancy Sinatra's version of Bang Bang, My Baby Shot Me Down. And I'm going to listen back to output just the center channel. That's what this tool does. So we're going to process audio here. And here's what the song sounds like originally.
I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks.
So you're hearing both her voice and the instrumentation. And if you listen to this audio in stereo, it's kind of strange. They've really extended or expanded the stereo field, so it's much louder. The instrumentation is much louder in one ear, and her voice is much louder in another. But listening back to this process version, we're hearing the noise, but we're not really hearing the instrumentation. Just kind of barely.
I was 5 and he was 6. We rode on horses made of sticks.
So this is a way of pulling out the vocals from a piece of audio that's got music on it. There are better tools out there. There's some AI tools that are much better at this, but that is one thing you can do with this tool. So that's what I wanted to show you. There's a few other things on here, like you can adjust the elevation scale, so how tall the spectrogram is. Sometimes it's better to view it much shorter. You can see the differences better, and sometimes the opposite is true. You can also change, let me move this threshold up here, and got to go back to our input. And let's stop viewing the preview mode. Now we can change the color of that area that we're removing. So maybe make it all black and harder to see through so that you see more contrast. You can also change the coloring of the spectrogram itself. There are a few options there. And then you can change the brightness. So that might be a way of looking at it that helps give you some more contrast. So anyway, so play around with this and have fun and test it out, and you're not going to hurt anything. It doesn't change the original audio that you upload. It'll only output a new version, and you can download it once you're done. Yeah, play around with it and test it out. See what your results are, and if you have any feedback, put it below this video in a comment, and I can make updates as I get the feedback. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to hearing what your thoughts are.